And so my question, Ben, is why are, just say, society in general, and Christians, evangelical Christians in particular, because I agree with you, you see this on people's Facebook pages, people who are professing evangelicals promoting Black Lives Matter. Why are people in general and Christians in particular so susceptible to not just the confusion of language, but I'll go further than that, the deceit of language being used and undiscerning about, like, let's say an organization like Black Lives Matter's beliefs when they're just right on their website?
That is a huge question, and I'll try to answer it as best I can. I think there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. For one thing, it's the name on the box. So social justice has, for lack of a better term, a brilliant marketing strategy in that they've just essentially labeled themselves as, quote, the good things. So if you're not with that program, it's assumed that you must be in favor of the bad things, and you must be a bad person. And I think when the average person hears someone say that they're against racism, that has a pretty straightforward meaning to that person. And pretty much everybody agrees and is against racism. So they say, yes, I'm for that. I'm against racism. But they're less likely to interrogate what that person's definition of racism really is, or what they believe they're entitled to do to correct for racism. And those are really important questions, because until we've come to a kind of agreed upon definition, and these definitions are highly contested right now, but until we've come on to an agreed upon definition, we're not agreeing to the same things. We can both say we're against racism, but what we mean by that is something very different from one another. So there's that. There's just the fact that most people are not accustomed to examining language in this way. Another aspect, especially for young people, is that they're primed to these ideas by college. The academy is a huge part of this. Higher education is where I became aware of this stuff. So I studied English literature for my master's, and in that field, and in the humanities in general, this stuff is everywhere. And you get familiar with analyzing or deconstructing text to find hidden meanings, which frequently means finding some kind of prejudice inside the text. And very often this begins by looking for sexism or racism, and the standards for finding it are so low that oftentimes it's more like you're reading it into the text. Like it's not there, but you find a way to interpret it into that situation. And some of these arguments are very flimsy, but it really mirrors what you now see happening in social media and places like Twitter with online cancel culture, where people are just going through the words of other people or events and with a fine-tooth comb, just almost trying to insert some type of bigotry or prejudice into it. And they're just doing what they've been trained to do. That's very common, especially for anyone who went through college in the humanities.